That's right, Solo Leveling, the most anticipated anime of the year, is pretty damn mid. But not the kind of Twitter weaponized mid where it means anything but mid, it's mid in the way that actually means mid. Mediocre, average.
Not great, not terrible.
The anime does what it sets out to do perfectly well, really well even at times. The problem being, what it does just isn't all that interesting. It's brutal, gory, battle shonen inspired action, but with an isekai style protagonist, and I do mean isekai style in everything. Jin-woo is as interesting a main character as a dog turd on the side of the road, and the rest of the cast, at least so far, fare little better. Which, strictly speaking, isn't really such a glaring issue, given how uninspiring your average shonen casts tend to be, but it's still very noticeable. But before we get further into it, a quick word from the first ever channel partner. I have partnered up with Vittujenkevat, a Finnish jewelry and household item brand. They specialize in high-quality, handcrafted and cruelty-free items with the humorous theme of genitalia. Products ranging from gold and silver necklaces and earrings to cookie cutters, mugs and bedsheets. Head over there and get 10% off your entire purchase at vittujenkevat.fi by using the link in the description and pinned comment and by using the code AddedCheese at checkout. And now back to today's scheduled programming of Solo Leveling, the rather disappointing manhwa adaptation. Which is kind of a shame, given that it's one of the most popular manhwa out there, to a point where people claim that it's the very thing that saved the entire medium. Is it the best written one? No, probably not, but it's easily in the top 10 of the most popular ones, which explains the massive hype for its now airing anime adaptation. Too bad the hype did not result in the best and greatest anime ever made, like a lot of fans were hoping for. The story follows the blandest main character I have seen in a long while, Jin-woo, the weakest hunter in the world. But he's still a hunter, a group of people who've had a special magical power awaken in them as a result of dungeon portals starting to appear everywhere around the world. These dungeons contain fantasy beasties of all shapes and sizes, creatures that are naturally completely resistant to any and all conventional weapons we may possess, since as a rule a sword is cooler than a gun.
This is brilliant, but I like this.
Does it make sense? No, but it's the rule of cool, so I guess. And while this starts to make even less sense when you realize that some of the hunters use crossbow gun thingies, we are expected to not question it. Besides, I like Warhammer 40,000, so by that merit alone I'm not even allowed to complain, so moving swiftly onwards. Where Jin-woo comes into this is that his family is poor and he has to pay for their mother's treatment to keep her alive, since any good power fantasy needs a sob story to get things rolling. Jin is basically as strong as your average kindergartner with a box cutter, and yet he bravely ventures forth to earn what little he can from the dungeons, all the while risking life and limb when facing even the weakest of monsters. That is, until he ends up face to face with a cruel god that slaughters his entire adventuring party, an encounter where he too dies. Except he lives, and gains the ability to become the most powerful hunter to have ever existed, because of course he does. And now you see why I said that the show is kind of like a battle shonen, or seinen, take a pick, mixed with isekai tropes. Jin's brand spanking new abilities that he can now level up. Hence the name of the anime. So, at least it's not Kirito levels of isekai instantly OP bullshit, and Jin-woo does actually have to work for it. And work for it he does, for all of 2 episodes, and then it's off to power tripping and the whole sub-story of a background is practically completely forgotten beyond a couple of very passing scenes. Then again, all of this is very shonen, so I guess it was to be expected. Oh, and did I mention that the stronger Jin gets, the more handsome he becomes as is only natural, and for some reason his chin too seems to grow with his powers, because reasons I guess. All of this is then spiced up with a dose of edgy so big that Sasuke came around complaining that his edgelord title was stolen. I mean, the title Jin-woo gets early on is fucking Wolf Assassin. Like, come on. That is the level of a middle school kid deciding on a cool gamer tag. At least there are some elements as to why Jin would get to be a little on the cold side with his understandable PTSD from, you know, which is seemingly forgotten after 2 episodes, and the trauma of being forced to kill people by the system, which doesn't even last until the end of episode 6, and I'm beginning to think that it's all just an excuse for maximum edge. So that bit was written and recorded before the latest episode, and now I can thankfully say that the whole murder is bad might not be forgotten quite as quickly as I feared. So maybe, just maybe, there is room for some character development yet. Jin-woo is kind of the teenager's dream character, so I guess he has that going for him, but for someone a little older, he just comes off as incredibly dull and kind of all over the place. There are a lot of half-hearted elements to him, and no real dedication to any of them, but it's still early days. So far, the cast of the show is by far its weakest aspect, but I will say that we barely met any of them beyond Mr. Edge, so maybe there is yet hope. Still, it's a dark shonen-esque power fantasy, and shonen as a genre isn't exactly known for its great characters, and at least the anime does the fight bits, the main point of it all, pretty damn well. It is very power-trippy combat that follows the shonen template almost to the T, all the while keeping up the stupidly overpowered isekai protagonist feel, and for one, it actually kinda fits. If you've seen any of my shonen, or isekai reviews for that matter, you'd know that I'm not the biggest fan of the chosen one cannot lose protagonist, unless it's by one sensei, but weirdly, I really don't mind it in solo leveling, not that much anyway. Maybe it's because there is very little of anything else going on, like in Demon Slayer, the entire point ends up being the power fantasy aspect of the fights, so instead of being boring like in most isekai that try way too hard, it ends up turning the action into just a little brainless fun. Solo leveling really embodies the flip side of the overpowered protagonist coin. When you don't take it any deeper and just go full dumb OP, naturally such approach stops it ever from being truly great, but sometimes better is the enemy of good enough. That and the animation really helps to sell the battle shonen-esque pure entertainment value approach. Solo leveling simply looks really good most of the time. It's not Ufotable levels of flash or Mappa kinds of graphical fidelity, but A1 Pictures really did bring us some great looking scenes, and something I can really appreciate is that it's not just impact frames galore. We have some actual fight choreography with discernible character movements. And if anything, it's nice to see another popular manhwa get an anime adaptation. Now, let's just hope that it won't end up being another God of High School. So far, it's been a bit of a rocky road, with the intro video controversy and the studio pori being dropped from the credits thing, as well as people being very vocal about the anime changing things from the manhwa. Then again, from what I could find, people had the exact same complaints when comparing the original light novel to the webcomic, so I'm not sure how big a deal it will end up being. All in all, Solo Leveling is, so far at least, just another power fantasy with good animation. That is to say, nothing special, which is kind of a letdown after the Chainsaw Man levels of hype the show had going for. The characters are one of the most boring casts I've seen in a while, and the show does nothing particularly clever or inventive, which for entertainment alone isn't really necessary, but at the same time it also prevents it from standing out either, especially following straight after the really popular Season 2 of Jujutsu Kaisen that falls into the same category of being dark battle shonen. If you like shonen or overpowered edgelord protagonist, or you just want to see a so far pretty decent adaptation of a manhwa, then you could do a lot worse too, but if you're looking for something truly great, then Solo Leveling isn't it. 7 out of 10, not great, not terrible, but perfectly adequate. And with that, thank you so much for watching. I do hope you enjoyed that. If you did, do hit that subscribe button, like this if you liked it, dislike if you didn't, and if you really like this, you can always become a channel member for some nice added perks. Leave your thoughts in the comments below as a worthy sacrifice to the algorithm god, share with friends, and check the links in the description if you want to engage with me outside of YouTube, Twitch, Twitter, and the like. With this, I have been Cheese, and I'll see you next time. Ta-ta for now.